Shabbat Shalom. We'll start with a nigun. Nigun, as you know, is a wordless melody, and this is a new nigun. And I would like everybody to pay attention because we will use the same melody for Adon Olam, for our closing song, so it will be like a musical test. So we'll sing as a nigun now, and then at the end we'll sing as Adon Olam. It's a Hasidic Adon Olam. So it goes like that. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 ya la ya la la. Ya la ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 ya la 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 la. Ya ya la la ya ya la la. Ya la ya la 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 la. Try with me. Ya la 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 ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 ya la ya la la. Ya la ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 ya la la la. Ya la 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 ya la la la. Ya ya la la ya ya la la. Ya la ya la 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 la. The same like beginning. Ya la 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 ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 ya ya la la. Ya la ya la la la. And now we'll try with the piano. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 ya la 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 la. Ya la ya la la. Ya la la la. Ya la ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la la la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la la la. Ya ya la la. Ya ya la la. Ya la ya la 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 la. Together. Ya la 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 ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya ya la la. Ya ya la la. Ya la ya la 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 la. Okay, so let's see if we remember that. That's
Right, this is the test component. Friends at home, we appreciate your participation. We can feel you, even if we can't see you, we can feel you singing at home. So friends in the sanctuary, you gotta give them something to go on as well. So you'll have your second chance during Adon Olam. We will begin Shabbat by kindling our Shabbat lights. We do so in the hopes not only of officially starting Shabbat, but by bringing warmth and brightness and light to each and every Shabbat that we celebrate each week. And also to shed light, we hope, as this evening we are dedicating part of our service and part of our hearts and part of our prayers towards Children's Sabbath, and that is being observed in so many congregations across the country, across the continent, I believe, right? In Canada as well. But we are, yes, no, maybe? Yes? Yeah, okay, great. So we are going to hear in a little while also from Larry Marks and Stephanie Townsend a little bit more about all the initiatives that are happening in town and how we can help, as so often is the case through Temple Sinai, to shed light and to aspire to really repair some of the very broken in our community. So we kindle light. We shed light, we welcome light into this space as we turn to page 121, and we invite to join us on the bima Adam and Sarah Dennis on the eve of Megan's becoming a bat mitzvah. Page 121 is where we begin.
O source of light and truth, creator of the eternal law of goodness, help us to find knowledge by which to live. Lead us to take the words we shall speak into our hearts and our lives. Bless all who enter the sanctuary in need, all who bring the offerings of their hearts. May our worship lead us to acts of kindness, peace, and love.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tivanu l'halak ner shel Shabbat.
Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, who hallows us with mitzvot, commanding us to kindle the light of Shabbat.
And together, Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
We'll continue now with Kiddush, which can be found on page 123, and we'll invite you please in body or in spirit to rise as we sanctify the day.
Baruch Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei berich hagafen. Baruch Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu, v'shabbat kodsho b'yavahu v'ratzon hinhilanu, zikaron lema'aseh bereshit, ki hu yom tekila lemikra'e kodesh, zecher letzion mitzrayim, ki banu b'charta, v'otanu kiddashta, mikol ha'amim, v'shabbat kodshecha, v'ahava u'v'ratzon, hinchaltanu, Baruch atah Adonai, mekadesh haShabbat. Amen. L'chaim.
And please be seated. Please be seated. Page 124 as we continue together. We enter the sanctuary to welcome Shabbat. Within these walls we sit surrounded by numberless generations. Our ancestors built the synagogue as a visible sign of God's presence in their midst. Throughout our long history and our endless wanderings, it has endured, a beacon of truth, love, and justice for all humanity. Its presence guided our ancestors to lives of righteousness, holding up to them a vision of their truest selves. Now we, in our turn, come into this sanctuary to affirm the sacredness of our lives. May we enter this place in peace. May holiness wrap around us as we cross its threshold. Weariness, doubt, the flaws within our human hearts, the harshness of the weak, let these drop away at the door. In the brightness of Shabbat, let peace settle upon us as we lift our hearts in prayer. Page 129, as we continue with the singing of Dodi Lee.
Dodi li mi
As we prepare to sing Lecha Dodi, the song that invites us to welcome the Sabbath bride, we pause this evening to reflect on the words of comfort and promise in the third verse of the translation of Sidur Shalom, Sim Shalom, one of the verses we actually do not typically sing in our congregation, but which read, "Holy city majestic, banish your fears. Arise, emerge from your desolate years. Too long have you dwelled in the valley of tears. God will restore you with mercy and grace." And this evening as we sing, may the words be our prayer for the children and the families throughout our nation who live in fear with the desolation of poverty and in the valley of tears. We continue now with the singing of Lecha Dodi, page 138. It is our custom to sing verses 1, 2, 5, and 9. And at verse 9, we stand in body or in spirit and we greet the Sabbath bride. And please be seated. We'll continue on page 145. She feels greeted. The Sabbath bride is most assuredly here. Page 145 is where we continue. Teach me, O God, a blessing, a prayer on the mystery of a withered leaf, on ripened fruit so fair, on the freedom to see, to sense, to breathe, to know, to hope, to despair. Teach my lips a blessing, a hymn of praise, as each morning and night you renew your days. Lest my day be today as the one before, lest routine set my ways. Page 146 as we continue with our call to worship the Baruch, and we'll invite you please in body or in spirit to rise.
Baruch et Adonai, Ham v'vorach.
Baruch Adonai Haverorav Le'olam Va'ed. Together, Baruch Atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech ha'olam, asher b'divaro ma'ariv aravim, b'chokhmah poteach she'arim, u'vitfuna mishaneh itim, u'machalif et hazmanim, u'mesader et ha'kochavim, b'mishmaroteim barakia kirtzono. Borei yom v'layla, golel or mipnei choshech, v'choshech mipnei or. U'ma'avir yom u'mevi layla, u'mavdil ben yom u'ben layla, Adonai tsevaot shemo. El chai v'kayam tamid yimloch aleinu le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai, hama'ariv aravim. As you taught Torah to those whose names I bear, teach me Torah too. Its mystery beckons, yet I struggle with its truth. You meant Torah for me. Did you mean the struggle for me too? Don't let me struggle alone. Help me to understand, to be wise, to listen, to know. Lead me into the mystery. Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem Kivod Malchuto, Le'olam Va'ed.
And please be seated. And just before we continue with the Ve'ahavta, I share with you, please be seated, I share with you this reading that is offered to us from the Children's Defense Fund. Loving life and its mystery source with all our heart and all our spirit, all our sense and strength, we take upon ourselves and into ourselves these promises: to care for the earth and those who live upon it, to pursue justice and peace, to love kindness and compassion. We will teach this to our children throughout the passage of the day as we dwell in our homes and as we go on our journeys, from the time we rise until we fall asleep. And may our actions be faithful to our words, that our children's children may live to know truth and kindness have embraced, peace and justice have kissed, and are one. We continue together with the Ve'ahavta.
בכל לבבך, בכל נפשך, בכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה, אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בהם, בשבתך, בביתך, ובלכתך בדרך, ובשובך וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בעיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך וישעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיהם. אני אדוני אלוהיהם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות להם אלוהים, אני אדוני אלוהיהם.
Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands, marching together. we ask for peace to rain down upon us. I don't know that this was necessarily what we all thought. Please, I see some of you kind of moving. Please, if you are experiencing the great outdoors, please feel free to move someplace where that is otherwise. Let's join together on page 161 as we say, "Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms, not lost on any of us. Adonai, help us to walk with good companions, to live with hope in our hearts and eternity in our thoughts, that we may lie down in peace and rise up waiting to do your will. Baruch atah Adonai, haporei sukat shalom aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael ve'al Yerushalayim." We continue now with the singing of the Shamru.
ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל, ביני ובין בני ישראל, ביני ובין בני ישראל, עתיד לעולם. ים ברי בי ביי, שבת שבת, ים ברי בי ביי, שבת שבת, ים ברי בי ביי, שבת שבת, שבת שלום. כששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, וביום השביעי שבת וינפש. ים ברי בי ביי, שבת שבת, ים ברי בי ביי, שבת שבת, ים ברי בי ביי, שבת שבת, שבת שלום.
Let's continue as we turn to the words of the Tefillah, page 164, and we'll invite you, please, to rise in body or in spirit.
Adonai sefer tiftach ufiya tehillatcha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, El Haggadah, Hagibor v'Hanara, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'Koneh Hakol, V'Zocher Chazdei Avot v'Imachot, Maybe Geulah Livnei v'Nechem Leman Shemo Be'ahava, Melech Hazer U'Shia Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham Be'ezrat Sarah, Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai, Mechai Hakol Atarach L'Choshia, Mashiv Haruach U'Marit HaKashem, Mechalkel Chaim B'Chesed, Mehayeh Hakol B'Rachamim Rabim, Somech Noflim V'Rofeh Cholim, U'Matir Asarim, U'Mekayem Emunato L'Shenei Achar, Mi Chamocha Bal Givorot, U'Mido Melech, Melech Mimit U'Mechayeh, U'Matzliach Yeshua, V'Ne'eman Adonai Yod HaKol, Baruch atah Adonai, Mechayeh HaKol.
Atah kadosh v'shimcha kadosh, v'kadoshim b'chol yom yahalelucha selah, Baruch atah Adonai, ha'el hakadosh. And please be seated. Page 173. Disturb us, Adonai, ruffle us from our complacency, make us dissatisfied with the peace of ignorance, that quietude which arises from a shunning of the horror and defeat, the bitterness and the poverty, physical and spiritual, of humans. Shock us, Adonai, deny us the false Shabbat, which gives us the delusions of satisfaction amid a world of war and hatred. Wake us, O God, and shake us from the sweet and sad poignancies rendered by half-forgotten melodies and rubric prayers of yesteryears. Make us know that the border of the sanctuary is not the border of living, and the walls of your temples are not shelters from the winds of truth, justice, and reality. Disturb us, O God, and vex us. Let not your Shabbat be a day of torpor and slumber. Let it be a time to be stirred and spurred to action. Baruch atah Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat. We give thanks. God of goodness, we give thanks for the gift of life, wonder beyond words, for the awareness of soul, our light within, for the world around us so filled with beauty, for the richness of the earth which day by day sustains us. For all these and for so much more we offer thanks. Baruch atah Adonai, hatov shimcha ulecha na'eh lehodot.
Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim le'olam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim le'olam. Ki atam melech adon lechol hashalom. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim le'olam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim
We pause now for a moment of silence, of prayer, of reflection. We turn our thoughts now and our prayers to those who are in need, and those who are in need, whether for weakness of body or weakness of spirit. And we know that it impacts so many people in so many different ways. On all nights, we are thinking of our youngest through to our most fragile and our oldest, and we know that they are in need of our prayers. 1 in 5 children in our nation is poor. Poverty exacts a terrible toll from children, including hunger and health problems and even early death. Children who were separated from their parents at the border suffered unimaginable trauma, and all across our nation, our young live in fear of the gun violence that kills or injures more than 40 children and teens every single day. And as we say and as we sing the Mishaberach, we pray for their blessing, their healing, and their courage. We say, Mishaberach Avotenu v'imotenu Avraham Yitzchak v'Yaakov, Sarah Rivka Rachel Balea, Hu Yivarech et Acholim. May the one who blessed our ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah, bless and give strength to those who are struggling. Shena Esther bat Rochel, Chaya Necha bat Riva Leah, Katriel Parachia ben Hershel Lazer v'Shoshana, Sarah bat Avraham v'Sarah, Alan Skirker, Laura Braun, Miriam bat Ella, Stephen Brent, Rainey Feingold, Irving Manis, Masha Batsheva, Susan Silton Tobias, Kim Stanger Delisle, Gabriel Berger, Hank Ferrioli, Nancy Cohn, Lynn Fragan, Tammy Henson, Brian Mansfield, Dean Harris, Abigail Herman, Michael Shartok, Alma Kubi, Pat Connor, Rick Siltera, Miriam Nemitz, Steve Grodensky, Gary Lipton, Allison Rothram Sakeli, Sarah Postelnik, Stanley Niskoda, Darren Kaplan, Michael Seidman, Suzanne Seidman, Casey Zachman, Steve Greenfield, Lois Skanecki, Abby Kohat, Ali Goldsmith, and Ronnie Frischman. If there are others whom you would add to our list for healing, for wholeness, for strength, please, as I look your way, would you share that name aloud with us? And at home? May the Blessed Holy One be filled with compassion for their health to be restored where possible and their strength to be revived. May God send renewal of body and renewal of spirit as we join together in saying, Amen.
Amen.
Page 371. It is at this time my pleasure and my honor to invite in just a moment Larry Marks and Stephanie Townsend to join us on the bema. Each of them has in fact been on this bema more than once before and has long had connection to Temple Sinai. We are delighted each year that we get one or both of you. We are really so thankful for that to address us at such a critical time. As we know in our community here in Rochester, and as we know nationwide, and how the pandemic has exacerbated need in such a tremendous way. Larry Marks is the CEO of the Children's Agenda since 2012. The Children's Agenda's mission is to advocate for effective policies and drive evidence-based solutions for the health, education, and success of children, especially for children who are the most vulnerable because of poverty, racism, health inequities, and trauma. The organization has made a big difference expanding access to affordable, high-quality childcare, increasing early intervention services for children with developmental delays and disabilities, establishing paid family leave, and on many other issues. Larry is an appointed member of the Governor's Early Childhood Advisory Council and was appointed to the New York State Child Care Availability Task Force. He is the former chair of the board of the National Partnership for America's Children, a federation of 53 state and local children's advocacy groups in 42 states. And he serves in leadership roles in the Rochester Monroe Anti-Poverty Initiative and Rock the Future. And Stephanie Townsend is the Children's Agenda's Communications and Coalitions Manager. Before joining the Children's Agenda, she worked as the Director of Research and Analytics for Rock the Future, and before that for 12 years as a consultant to community-based and educational organizations. Her work included projects here in Rochester as well as for the state, national, and global organizations. Stephanie has a bachelor's degree in psychology and religious studies from the University of Michigan, a master's degree in social ethics from the Graduate Theological Union, and master's and doctoral degrees in community and prevention research from the University of Illinois at Chicago. It is my and our pleasure to invite you to join us at this time.
Thank you, Rabbi, very much. It is a pleasure to be here today with those who are in the sanctuary and those who are at home. This week's Torah portion is from Lech Lecha. It is full of deep ideas and challenges. As a woman, I wrestle with the conflict between Hagar and Sarah as they vie for favor at the expense of one another. As a mother, I am pained by the favoring of one son, Isaac, over another, Ishmael. And as a Jew, I am reminded that God blessed Ishmael too. Yet this year, as I read the portion, what my thoughts keep returning to is the idea of covenant. It is central to the Torah portion this week. Oftentimes, when we talk about covenant between God and the Jewish people, I think we fall into the habit of imagining it simplistically. God chose us, and now we are bound by God to follow the commandments. But if we listen closely, we hear that the covenant God speaks of is far more dynamic. 3 times in this week's reading, God refers to the covenant between me and you. Between me and you is a striking choice of words. To me, it speaks of mutual obligation, of reciprocity, and of relationship. The covenant brings God and humanity together in a way in which we depend on one another. This makes me recall the writings of Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel. Among his greatest works were 2 books that outlined his philosophy of Judaism. The first was titled, Man is Not Alone, a perhaps comforting but not entirely unexpected title. The second, however, was titled God in Search of Man. That title, and even more the rich ideas in the book, have always struck me as profound, for it makes it clear that God needs us. Which begs the question, for what? One thing God needs us for is tikkun olam, repairing the world. And our world is desperately in need of repair right now. The pandemic has taken 722,000 lives in the United States and 4.5 million worldwide. It has wreaked economic havoc on people's lives, with 22 million jobs lost in our country in a 4-month period. It has kept families apart, unable to hold the hand of a loved one or to say a final goodbye. But in our community, here in Monroe County, I think no one has been affected more than Rochester's children. For 17 months, more than 20,000 children in Rochester had no access to in-person schooling. They were separated from their friends, classmates, teachers, and mentors. They no longer had the creative outlets in art class or music class, or the team building and socializing that comes from gym and recess. Now, while schools and organizations did their best to help our children continue to learn and grow, Zoom is no replacement for hands-on learning or for authentic relationships. At the same time, some children saw family members fall ill, some witnessed violence in their neighborhoods, and many saw their parents worry about how to pay rent or buy food while they were laid off or their hours or wages were cut. In light of all of that, going back to school this fall has not been as simple as going back to normal. After 17 months of disruption, Rochester's children are hurting. Healing those hurts will take every one of us, whether we have children or not, whether we live in the city or the suburbs. We each have a role to play. The phrase "mipnei tikkun ha'olam" is used in the Mishnah. It refers to providing extra protection to people who are at a disadvantage. For example, governing just conditions for how divorce decrees are written and for freeing slaves. As such, Tikkun Olam is not only about what we do as individuals, it is at its heart about just social policy. Through this Children's Interfaith Weekend that is being observed by faith communities throughout Monroe County, and through the work of the Children's Agenda, we today have the opportunity to engage in Tikkun Olam together on behalf of Rochester's children.
So tonight, we at Temple Sinai are joining, as Rabbi Till said, hundreds of congregations around the country and around the globe, synagogues, mosques, churches, every major faith tradition in Monroe County to focus advocacy on the youngest members of our community. And one of the reasons I'm so proud to be with Temple Sinai especially is because of the participation traditionally this synagogue has had in both the Children's Agenda's Interfaith Collaborative and also the work that you all do in social action that really makes a difference. Yeah, the glasses really fog up with the mask on. So, just one example of how policy changes make a huge difference in people's lives that I want to give. Rabbi Till mentioned the 1 out of 5 number of children living in poverty. It's actually now closer to 1 out of 6, thanks to years-long advocacy for an extension of the children's tax credit federally that was included in President Biden's proposal to Congress in the American Rescue Plan Act. That made it more generous, more inclusive, and a monthly payment. As a direct result of that, according to Columbia University, 3 million children this year formerly living in poverty are no longer living in poverty. There's been a 25% reduction, 1 out of 4 children who lived with food insufficiency in low-income families. And it's the poorest families, those at $35,000 annual household income or below, that are benefiting the most. That is the difference that advocacy can make concretely in children and families' lives. So this Children's Shabbat, we are focusing on the well-being of students, especially the most vulnerable as they return to school. These 2 past pandemic years, as Stephanie mentioned, along with the economic downturn and the flare-up of racial injustice, all of that's been a blow to all of us, but especially to children, and especially to children of color. Everyone's mental health has suffered, but Black and brown children are particularly vulnerable and face long-term consequences. Excellus Blue Cross Blue Shield, our local largest insurer in the region, reports that of any pediatric diagnosis whatsoever, the second leading diagnosis right now is anxiety and depression. Golisano Children's Hospital Psychiatric Department has a 500-person waiting list at this moment. Mental health emergency room visits are up 31% around the country for children ages 12 to 17. And there are 2.5 times as many adolescents thinking about suicide than before the pandemic, and the suicide rate of Black children under age 13 is now 2 times higher than white children. Mental health screenings in schools should be every bit as important and common as physical health screenings, but they are not. Why we treat psychic pain to brains and spirits and feelings, any different than physical pains is really quite beyond comprehension, especially for children. The wellness of their emotional states has lifelong consequences. The good news is that really for the first time, the most vulnerable children, like the 17,000 children in the Rochester City School District, have the federal funding to make a big difference for the first time on those issues. But they need to spend those funds, not sit on them. They need not to go to structural deficits, but to actually help the families and the children, and they need to be spent wisely to promote the social, emotional, and behavioral wellness of students. So this Shabbat, we're asking you all to go to our website. In the back, there is a big poster, and there's also flyers that have the address and also a QR code that you can use on your cell phones, and we'll leave it also for Sunday school. And we're calling on the Rochester City School District, the place where the most vulnerable children in our community go, to invest the $300 million they have now, just a piece of that, on restorative practices and mental health supports, on more help zones and more social workers, and on healing the stress, the loss, the anxiety, the fears, and the inequities that have intensified now to acute levels. We have to act. We have an opportunity from this awful pandemic to help mental health needs come out of the closet and to create permanent supports, not just for this moment in time, but forever. So go to www.thechildrensagenda.org/advocate, or take a flyer, scan the QR code on your cell phones after services. This advocacy works. 3 million less children in poverty now as a result of government action. Nothing like that has happened since the 1930s. So this advocacy works. It may take time, but it does work, and we thank you for joining in this Children's Shabbat. Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Larry and Stephanie, thank you. Thank you very, very much. You heard the statistics directly from them. You don't need any more from me except to say, perhaps, that our prayers are only as good as they are actionable. So let us read the words, pray the words, sing the words in our Siddur, and let them lead us to the actions, many of which Larry and Stephanie just pointed us towards. So please, on your way out, use your phone, take a picture of the code, take a pamphlet, go to the website and see how you can help advocate. Be educated first, more beyond. If you are searching for more information, speak to Larry or Stephanie and look at the Children's Agenda website and please help us. And friends at home, we will have that information up on our website as well if it is not yet. We thank you each and both for the work that you are doing. We'll continue now on page 586 as we turn to our concluding prayers, the Elenu, for which we will ask you please to rise. Page 586.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת קללה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשה רקיע ארצות, ולא עשה מלך משפט אדמה, שלא שם להקים אותם, וגורלו לנגן חמונם, ואנחנו קוראים, ומשתחווים ומודים, לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא, ונאמר אדוני למלך הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד.
We pause now to think of our loved ones whom death has recently taken from us, those who died at this season in years past, and those whom we have drawn into our hearts with our own. During the period of Shloshim, these last 30 days, we are mourning the loss of Bella Kidder Krasner, mother of Mick Krasner, Bernard Cantor, father of Hope Cantor, Shirley Kruger, grandmother of Aaron Trimble, Ricky Kaplan, family member of Linda Platt, and Douglas Herrick, father of Craig Herrick. This evening marks a yahrzeit and anniversary of passing for Sydney Albaum, Lila Berg, Jenny Berger, Harry Blum, Francis Bullard, Ethan Diggory, Dennis Dreyer, Joseph Dubin, Susie Fox, Ida Friedlander, Seymour Ginsburg, Anna Goldman, Jacob Handelman, Morton Hare, Jacob Katz, Ralph Katz, Otto Kraus, Hyman S. Levin, Leah Litmanovich, Lorraine Litt, Belle Lovenheim, Hope Mann, Barbara Grace Merlis, Carol Newman, Beatrice Rose, Ray Rubel, Ray Rudin, Esther A. Schwartz, Ben Seidman, Jacob Thomas Scheidlauer, Jan Stam, Samuel Hyman Steinberg, Natalie Evelyn Teagarden, Zorino Walitsky, Janice Whiteman. If there are other names that you would add to either list, or names that are better spoken aloud by you, please, as I look your way, would you share that name with us? And at home? We say, Zichronam Livracha, may their memories be for a blessing as we turn to page 598 for Kaddish Yatom. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shmei Rabbah, be'alma divrach yirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'v'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael, ba'agala u'v'zman kariv v'imru, Amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevarach le'olam olmei olmaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh, V'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei dekudesha b'richu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechamata, da'amiran be'alma v'imru, Amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru, Amen. Oseh shalom b'imramav, huya aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel v'imru, Amen. May the one who creates harmony on high bring peace to us, to all Israel, as we join together in saying, Amen. Amen. And please be seated. Please be seated. We want to once again thank Larry Marks and Stephanie Townsend from the Children's Agenda for being with us this evening. We want to thank Elise Wojciechowski for being our greeter this evening. We want to wish early best wishes to the Dennis family as Megan is on the threshold of becoming a bat mitzvah. We want to offer a mazel tov to Rhonda Vaccaro on her marriage to Michael Kargas on August 14th, to Rabbis Alan and Jan Katz on the bat mitzvah of their granddaughter Michaela Katz-Wallman on September 25th. Also to Rabbis Jan and Alan Katz on the bat mitzvah of their other granddaughter Miri Helfin on October 10th. Good to go from Simcha to Simcha. And to Larry and Amy Jacobson on the marriage of their daughter Stacy to Tate Stern on September 26th. We want to remind you that tomorrow morning Torah study is on Zoom only at 9:15. And then we have Shabbat morning services at 10:30 where Megan will be called to the Torah as a bat mitzvah. Religious school on Sunday morning at 9:30 and also again on Wednesday. And then we have our first adult ed class looking at Martin Buber mutuality and duality beginning at 7 p.m. both in person and on Zoom. Join us again next week at 8 p.m. for our Shabbat service and our first short in-person oneg following services. And then we start again on Saturday morning with Torah study, and at 10:30 following Torah study we have Shabbat morning services where Jonas Grafoni will be called to the Torah as a bar mitzvah. Please, there are many places that need your attention, that need your support, your advocacy, and your financial support. You can find all of those on our website. You can go to the Children's Agenda, as you heard this evening, as well as support for Haiti and Afghan refugees and Rock Strong, the Federation's campaign for security. You can find for each of those places on our website, and we encourage you, please, to look there as well. Any announcements from where you sit? Any joys that we should know about? Any news that we should know about from you? It stopped raining in the sanctuary. That's a nice one, right? All right. Okay, we will turn to Motzi, and we will invite the Dennis family to join us on the bima for Motzi. And then we will turn to our concluding song, your test for the evening. Don't go anywhere. Friends at home, get yourselves ready. Page 625, right after Motzi, for our Adon Olam. And we want to give thanks. You'll remove the cover from the challah. Just remove the cover, please. Let us give thanks for all that sustains us, all that nourishes us as we share Motzi together. Ready?
Slides out, there we go.
Slide out.
Try not to hold it, I guess I'll hold it. There we go.
B'tei Avon, page 625 for our closing song, Adon Olam.
אשר מלך, אשר מלך, בטרם כל יציר נברא, יציר נברא, לעת נעשה בחפץ הכל, אזי מלך שמו נקרא, ואחרי ככלות חתול, לבדו ימלוך נערה, והוא היה, והוא הווה, והוא יהי בתפארה. אדון עולם אשר מלך, אשר מלך, בטרם כל יציר נברא, יציר נברא, לעת נעשה והעש הכל, אזי מלך שמו נקרא.
Shabbat Shalom, a good Shabbos. We wish
Shabbat
you all a
Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, a good and a healthy week ahead. Shabbat Shalom.